And welcome to 30-Minute Talks. I'm Dr. Andy Nazarechuk, and today is December 16th, 2020, and this is our 36th weekly webinar. And because the holidays are coming up, it's the end of the year, we're announcing that this is our last weekly webinar, and we're very happy and proud that we've been able to produce 36 weekly programs without fail. Alan and Perry have been here working hard, and we've all been working hard to produce, create, get guest speakers, talk about different topics during the pandemic. We thought that this was a great time to bring our weekly webinars to a conclusion. And next year, when we start the year out, we'll be doing some special programs, but those will be by invitation only. So this will be our last weekly webinar, and we're looking forward to an exciting program. Alan, why don't you tell us about our last show here today?
Yes, thanks, Andy. And first of all, I just want to make mention of some of our guest speakers that were able to join us today, and we'll mention them throughout our presentation. But thank you to Professor Ross Dowling, Dr. Bert van Wilbeck, Dr. Lee Sin, Joe Gibian, Dr. Lilibeth Aragon, and Tina Kino, who will be joining us later, and will be given an opportunity to say hello to everybody and make some final comments. But you know, as this last week has seen some really, really big news around the world with the commencement of the vaccination programs, which I think is a very positive sign for all of us. Who would have thought, you know, back in March this year that the pandemic would have had such a large and lasting effect on the world? We predicted that tourism will return to normal, and I'll speak a bit more about that in my presentation. Who knows what the new normal will be? But we're very proud, as Dr. Andy said, to be able to have participated and contributed to everybody's learnings through this program. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Alan. That's some great comments. And then, Perry, how about you?
Well, look, it's been one heck of a year, I think, for everybody. You know, the year started and in a way of wondering whether this it was going to be more of an epidemic before it was recognized as a pandemic. And then as things rolled out across the year, what a roller coaster it's been. And I think, you know, next year, my feeling is, and we'll talk about this later, probably going to be some similar things. But of course, you know, the good news is with the vaccine now having been tested, and at least there's some light at the end of this particular tunnel as we go forward. But for both education and hospitality and tourism, this, I think, will go down as probably, as people look back at history, what a year, record-breaking in all the wrong ways, dare I say. But we must remain positive and hopeful and look forward to what, I think, as I said, that light at the end of the tunnel in terms of how we're going to come out of this. Back to you, Andy.
Yeah, I think it's great that the vaccine is out there, and let's hope that everybody can get their vaccine soon. And the sooner they do, I think then the world will get back on the road and we'll start getting back to normal someday soon. Today we created a special little video. A lot of people always ask us, you know, how did we begin? When did we begin? What were the reasons for the beginning of the show? So we created this short video about the history and the sort of the development of 30-minute talks. And so I'll ask my two co-hosts to shut off their videos, and we'll watch our little documentary on 30-minute talks. Welcome. I'm Dr. Andy Nazarechuk, and along with Professor Perry Hobson and Mr. Alan Williams, we are happy to share the development story of our weekly educational series called 30-Minute Talks. In April, the pandemic started. Businesses closed, lockdowns began, and schools were closed. With classes canceled, we knew that e-learning would become the primary form of education during the pandemic. Fortunately, Zoom and other video conferencing services provided an easy way to offer online courses. Unfortunately, most academics were not immediately ready to join the online teaching world for a variety of reasons. Perry, Allen, and I decided to support hospitality and tourism programs by providing weekly webinars that offered current topics concerning our industry with a promise to keep our sessions short and to the point. Our first session on April 15th sold out our free 100-seat account on Zoom. Of course, we increased that account to 500. That sold out too. In the beginning, we did focus the discussions on how to react to the pandemic, but we also expanded to other important and interesting topics. Later, we added another weekly segment called 90 Seconds that offered a quick concept or idea for students to think about. Of course, we couldn't be successful without partners, and we're happy to have more than 20 academic partners who have promoted our program to their students and academic staff. We also wanted to give a special thanks to LPU for supporting us from the very first program. We have had over 25 guest speakers, all supporting our goal of offering quality presentations and discussions for our audience. Over 5,800 different attendees have joined our sessions. Many attend every week. Perry, Allen, and I are also invited to speak at various online conferences and events. 30-minute talks e-certificates are very popular to students and academics who use our programs to complement their own courses. We also appreciate LPU's efforts to create and distribute the certificates each week. In September, we celebrated the creation of our website where everyone can continue to watch both past programs and our 90-second videos. This year, we have completed 36 consecutive weekly programs, survived a variety of technical and other issues, and it has been a wild and fun ride. Today, December 16, 2020, we are celebrating our 36th consecutive weekly webinar. We have been honored with many compliments received from our attendees and the support from our academic partners. While our weekly webinars have come to an end, we will continue to offer special webinars by invitation in the future. Thank you for joining us on this journey, and we hope that our programs this past year have helped you continue your educational pursuits. The world continues its battle against the pandemic, and we are confident that the hospitality and tourism industry will rebound strongly in the future. I'm Dr. Andy Nazarechuk, and on behalf of Professor Perry Hobson and Mr. Alan Williams, we wish you all the very best.
Well done, Perry. And Andy, you've got a great little history of the show there. Congratulations. And although it wasn't 90 seconds, Andy, I've got to give you that.
We're going to put that on our website so people who come for the first time, but it went a little bit longer. Yeah, it wasn't actually a 90-second video. Today, we can do a lot of different things because it's our last program, so we can have some fun today, Alan.
And everybody knows I'll be having an in-house joke with Andy because it's always been a challenge for us to see who could stick to the 90 seconds.
That's right. I think we'll have to have a rankings for who's done the longest and who's done the shortest on that one as well.
Actually, I did notice in the video that Tina Aquino had also a 9.7, so I think there's a tie for the highest score for our show. Okay, Perry, are you ready?
Absolutely, absolutely.
And so, Perry, we're going to invite Perry to give a little talk about his topic for our 30-minute talks, and we look forward to hearing some reminiscing about some of those great shows that we had in the past.
Well, thanks very much, Andy and Alan. And I think over the last 36 odd weeks that we've been involved in this, it's not just been about us doing the 30-minute talks, it's also been about the other things that were mentioned in the video that we've also become involved with. And so I'm just going to touch a little bit on that and sort of, it's, as you see in the video, just reflect on what's happened over the last year that we've been involved. And I think, you know, everyone talks about the downsides of COVID, but I think the reality is that there's also been a few upsides, and I think we shouldn't forget those as well. And, you know, I don't think we would have started 30-minute talks had COVID not come along. And I think this has also born another community of institutions and a focus on what's been able to happen. Now, of course, Dr. Andy, myself and Alan have been often speaking at different universities around the Asia Pacific region and more globally as well. So I guess we were fortunate that we were in a position, and as you heard there in the video, we recognized being in constant communication with colleagues at different institutions about the challenges that many of them were facing. And, you know, when we've been in the past giving guest lectures, we've been invited to give at different universities, such as here at LPU and at the University of Santo Tomas, we were fortunate enough to get that feedback. Now, of course, the COVID pandemic, as it kicked in back in February, March time, but of course, we have to remember this hasn't been the world's first pandemic, and there's been quite a bit of reflection on what happened, you know, just over 100 years ago. But of course, this has been quite unique because this pandemic has grounded entire, you know, a world that was very globalized, which really wasn't the case 100 years ago, has hit our modern world much, much harder in many, many different ways. And just before we began our first show back in April the 15th, you heard this report had come out the weekend before. And certain people were saying in the industry that this is going to take a lot longer than many people think. And I think if we reflect back Some people thought that this would take maybe a few weeks, maybe a few months at best. It'll all be sorted out by Christmas. And yet here we are as Christmas 2020 approaches. And in fact, the situation in many countries has now got it's actually just got worse. So the reality is that over this year, COVID has really changed our world from what our thinking was back at the beginning of this world. And we're having to learn to adapt. And not we just as individuals having to learn to adapt, but whole segments of our industry are learning to adapt. So it doesn't matter whether you're in fast food, whether you're being in the restaurant or the events industry, the whole concepts and the way we designed our venues, restaurants, airports has been changed. And we've gone from a situation where a year ago we were talking about the importance of everything being high touch to now talking about the importance of everything being contactless, whether it's in terms of delivery or payments. And obviously we're seeing the rapid adoption of a whole range of technologies. I don't think I've ever used QR codes as much as I'm now using them, because every time I go into a restaurant or business, a shopping mall, my own university, we're using all those QR codes. And of course, for a lot of students, particularly in hospitality tourism, this has been a really dramatic shift this year, because so much of the future of work and what the future will look like and how people will be, the way our jobs are structured in the future is going to be a big issue going forward. And so sadly, we're going to be living with COVID for a while. So as we've already mentioned today, the vaccine has begun to be rolled out, but this is going to take a long time to deploy it. And there's a simple reality in that. So COVID, whether we like it or not, has emptied our airports, buses, our railway stations. It's emptied our hotels, beaches and restaurants. And as educators, it's also emptied our universities. And so for many of us, this has made it very challenging, because our lecturers have left the classroom, and whether we wanted to or not, we've come online. And so students have also had to be faced with that. So let's be honest, as Andy was pointing out in the video that we prepared there, that, most academics were analog before COVID. We were bookheads, and yet now we've become digital professors. And this changes things. It changes the opportunities to let our knowledge be known in other universities, but also it changes the dynamics of how we are able to relate and engage with students. So this has been very challenging for that. And not everybody and every institution has been able to adapt so quickly. Many of us, some universities were involved in blended learning before, but many were not. And so that's been a big challenge. For many students, not having the right equipment, not having the right Wi-Fi connections, download speeds has accentuated the digital divide. And so we realized that. And so that was something that we saw an opportunity to create 30-minute talks, to find a way to be able to reach out, to engage with colleagues from different institutions, to bring everyone together on a platform which was pretty accessible through Zoom. Though we've also found that for many people watching us through YouTube uses less capacity in terms of download, and so that's been possible. But also to record and upload them onto the website, so students and educators can watch our webinars whenever they like. So what an amazing experience it's been. We've had so many different colleagues joining us. We've been to the top of the world. This was us with Samir Thapa, who runs a hotel school, Silver Mountain Hotel School in Nepal. So we went to the top of the world, and we've been down right to the best beaches in the world, over to the Bahamas with our colleague Vic Nair. So over the last 36 weeks, we've visited various tourism destinations, whether it's been Macau, whether it's been Las Vegas. As you can see there, the Bahamas, Nepal, and we've explored different themes and issues in terms of throughout this pandemic period. Now, we've involved people near and far. This is my colleague, Professor Marcus Stevenson from Somewhere University here in Malaysia. We've involved people from further away, such as Gabby Walters, who is at the University of Queensland in Australia. And so over the weeks, we have brought all those different people together and ideas, and that's led us to interact with a range of different people and organisations. And very pleasingly for the three of us, this has also meant we've been extended a range of different invitations and opportunities to speak at other forums, not just on our weekly webinars. Now, this was something we hadn't foreseen was going to happen back in April when we kicked off the series. And so over the last 36 weeks, we've had an increasing number of invitations coming in. And those have included from organizations such as TIPFI, which is based in the Philippines. And we were asked to do a webinar for them on rebooting tourism, and where we were focusing on what steps the tourism industry has to do to get itself, dare I say, match ready as COVID recedes and to get itself to get back into business. We were also invited by educators such as COREP, which is also based in the Philippines. And we had over close to some 300 educators for that one, looking at facilitation skills and using the knowledge we've got to do 30 minutes and how educators could pick up on some of the skills and practical points that we picked up. And that session went so well that was then picked up by another organisation called APAC CRE, which is a regional body of hospitality and tourism educators. And they also asked us if we could do a similar show for them, which we did. And so it's been great to be able to engage with organisations that we've known and also some organisations that we haven't had much contact with. So Dr. Andy and I were also invited to participate with what's called Edutech. And Edutech Asia runs a variety of shows focusing on how education technology can be used. And traditionally, they've run these in Singapore, they've run them in Manila. And so we were involved in one, which was looking at how to engage students in a virtual classroom. And so again, this took us into some new areas. We were also tapped on the shoulder by our friends at Encut in Kaohsiung in Taiwan to participate on judging what's called the 3-minute thesis proposals. And I must say this was a great activity to be involved in. They're working at Encut with a number of different institutions. And we got to spend 3 minutes listening to each student give their presentations. And I think on behalf of the three of us, I can say it was hard. It's quick, but it was hard. And congratulations to many of those students who put together their thesis proposal ideas and were able to effectively communicate those in 3 minutes. And that's then taken us over to India. And so earlier this month, there was the first Asian Tourism Research Conference. And 30 Minutes Talks, we were very pleased to support Dr. Tony Thomas at Mahatma Gandhi University in Kerala there to help with this particular university as they kicked off their first tourism research conference. And we also ran a special session of 30-minute talks within the conference. So again, we were able to reach out and engage with our academic partners who've supported us as a way of supporting them as well on this journey. And that again has taken us back to connecting with industry and through, again, some of those connections there to the Pacific Asia Tourism Association. PATA is based in Bangkok, but they have chapters in most Asian countries. And the former dean of LPU, Bob, tapped us on the shoulder and asked us if we would be involved in their business assembly. And I was available on that particular day to be able to do that and got some very nice feedback. So thanks very much, Bob. And also got featured in the Manila Standard newspaper just last week. So that was, again, focusing on tourism recovery strategies and what can be done there. And last but not least, another organisation, which is an international accreditation body, the ICE, and they asked us if we could do a webinar for them. And the three of us looked at surviving COVID, what can institutions and educators do? So Dr. Andy, myself and Alan were in a position having a long history in education between the three of us and having engaged with a variety of different institutions over the last 36 weeks to give some input to those. So again, that's been a way that 30 Minutes Talks has not just been about our weekly webinars, we've also been able to engage so many with other people. So that hopefully has given you a little bit of an overview to what else we've been doing, rather than just meeting with you every Wednesday. So Alan, I think you've also got a few thoughts you'd like to share as we talk through about some of the things we've been involved with over the last 36 weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks very much, Perry, and a very, very interesting presentation. And as you mentioned, one of the things that I also picked up through that presentation is the number of events that we're involved in that were unintended consequences of the pandemic and COVID-19.
How many thousands of people we've been able to talk to over the last year just because we have the opportunity to have a webinar? It's very good outline there, Perry, to let us know how it's going. Which one was your favorite special event?
Oh, that's a good question. Very good question. Each one of them, I think, has been really quite special and quite different because the audience has been different. The recent one I did with Parter, actually, when we were asked to do that one, I think that was great. There was really quite a bit of feedback and interaction on that one, I must say. So I really enjoyed that. But each of them, as I said, it's hard because the audiences and the focus has been so hard.
Alan, you want to tell us about all of our guest speakers? Are you ready?
Absolutely, Andy. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Let me just flick mine on and just let me know if that's come across okay. So as Perry has said, everybody, thank you again for sharing your thoughts, Perry, and also for outlining all those events that we participated in over the past, 36 weeks, 9 months or so. It's an uncanny thing about the word 9 months, I think, that in most cases were rather unintended or as consequence of the pandemic. And once again, good afternoon to everybody, and thank you for joining us for today for this, what we've already said has been the last, or will be the last, weekly presentation of 30-minute talks. And we'll take a new format, and who knows exactly what that format will be in the new year. Well, who would have thought that 36 weeks ago, 30-minute talks would still be going today? And whilst I think at many times it's been hard work, I would say and join with Perry and Andy in saying that it's also been a really fun ride. But as we've said, all good things must come to an end, and the future, who knows exactly what that holds for us. But after the 36 weeks and the 36 shows, it would be a little remiss of me not to acknowledge all of the friends and colleagues that have contributed to 30-minute talks as guest speakers. And 30 Minutes has been fortunate enough to have had many guest speakers, who many of them as shown in the slide today, who week in and week out have given up their time to share their thoughts, their insights and their knowledge with students, faculty, industry, academics, and colleagues all around the globe. So I'd like to take a few moments to thank our lineup of guest speakers by sharing with all of you a short summary of each of their contributions over this time, and also to remind our listeners that their presentations and all of the events that we've hosted over this time will be available on our website for your future use. So please remember to use our website as a resource in the future if you're so interested. But starting firstly, I want to acknowledge and thank all of the hospitality students and faculty from some 20-odd institutions, as has been mentioned, for your regular weekly support and participation. And by the way of this list of students and institutions, this list has actually continued to grow right up until this last week. Initially, as the show started as an informational webinar, where everybody looked to us and to each other as a way of supporting each other in the early days of the pandemic, the show later became more of an educational, with students and faculty participating in our surveys and telling us of the 3 key learnings that they took away from each show, and ultimately qualifying for what I think became, I like to think, a little bit of a collector's item, the 30-minute talks e-certificates. On the 27th of May, we experimented with an open mic session, and Andy asked before, what's one of the shows that you most enjoyed? Well, I actually think that this is one of the shows I most enjoyed. It was a challenging show, no doubt, where we basically said, if you have a question, we have the answer. And this allowed all students and faculty to really participate in an open conversation on the day. And I recall the day well. We had microphones open, we had dogs barking, we had lights on and off, we had cars tooting, we had signals dropping in and out. But despite all of those challenges, I think it was a great opportunity for students to see and for faculty to see that we are one community and that we all support each other. It was challenging, but it was fun. Shortly thereafter, 30 Minutes expanded and formally introduced our guest speaker program. And as the number of speakers grew, so did the breadth and width of the topics that we offered. And the first show with a guest speaker was presented by a friend and colleague of ours, Professor Ross Dowling, on cruise ship tourism. And Ross is joining us today, and Ross will, a little later, together with the other guest speakers that are able to join us, will be able to say a few words as well. Some weeks later, Dr. Glenn McCartney offered a session about Macau and Macau tourism, from tourism lockdown to tourism recovery. And you've got to remember, this is in the very early days of the pandemic, and things were still very grey and uncertain as to what the industry was doing, what the countries were doing, what the response was going to be. But Glenn gave us some great insights, and thank you for joining us, Glenn, and for your magnificent insights into the situation in Macau, as I said, in the very early days. We then expanded a little further afield as we moved out of the Asia Pacific region and into the USA, and specifically into the Las Vegas, with Las Vegas, How It All Began. And this was presented by another friend and colleague, Professor Joseph Lemmer. Joe offered us an insight into the devastating effects of COVID on one of the oldest and best known casino strips in the world. And to be honest, this was also one of the most colourful presentations that we had. So congratulations, Joe, because I recall the lights quite vividly as part of that presentation. And I'd also like to thank Joe for sending his very kind words. We'll share these with you later in the presentation that he's also asked us to share with the participants today. We then revisited the past to get an idea of the future with the question, will the next normal be the old normal? And a very interesting presentation and insight into how history responds to disasters, epidemics and pandemics, presented by Dr. Bert van Welbeek. And Bert is also joining us today from London. And hi, Bert. Sorry it's such a terrible time for you, but we look forward to you sharing some of your thoughts with us a little later on in the show as well. As Perry then said, we offered an insight into accreditation and given our history with the ICE, all three of us, what this meant, what accreditation means to students and institutions. And this was presented by a couple of friends, co-presented by a couple of friends and supporters of 30-minute talks, Professor Pearl Lin, who's former president of NCUT, and Dr. Lilibeth Aragon, who's a friend of LPU, who's part of LPU and a friend of the 30-minute talks, who also will join us a little later in the show. And then Dr. Lee Sin Chen, Professor Lee Jolliffe, and Dr. Martin Basilwich presented a session on the importance of coffee and tea tourism and the impact of COVID on that industry. But not to forget mentioning the importance of coffee and tea to all of us in our daily lives, and the fact that the coffee and tea tourism is growing as a segment of our industry. And Dr. Lee Sin Chen will also join us later in the show. And I just saw Jerry log on. Hi, Jerry, and we know the timing's not fantastic for you, but welcome and thank you for joining us. We then visited the islands for the first time with tourism strategies for Hawaii post-COVID-19, and a very interesting presentation to how Hawaii is dealing with COVID, presented by Dr. Jerry Gruss at the University of Hawaii. And this is one of the first times we learned of some research that has been undertaken by him, confirming travellers to Hawaii would be willing to pay more to ensure their safety while flying. And some concepts were coming out of that. And the next week, we were tracking the return of the mice industry, presented by Mr. Rod Kamleshwaran, a managing partner at Gaining Edge, as he discussed the importance of the mice industry, and as the mice industry being a bit of a canary in the cage to the tourism industry and to economic recovery at large. This was then followed by what I have to admit was the best looking group of presenters we have on the 30-minute talks and all the shows, with our show entitled Shining Stars of the Future. With our first guest host, and thank you very much to Tina Aquino, who's a very good friend of ours and of the show. She hosted the show, and with her guest speakers, including Vanessa Ledesma Sortenko, who is the GM of the Diamond Hotel, Monette Iterold Hamlin, president and co-founder of Team Asia, Esther Ning, who's the business development manager at Gain Edge, Singapore, and of course, the president of Co-Rep and founder of the Joji Iligan International Schools, Miss Joji Iligan. And I believe Christina and possibly Joji might also be joining us later on the show today. And Perry has already mentioned, with the challenges of Perry, Andy and myself not being able to travel, that we actually needed to take another virtual holiday at this time of the show, and that we missed the island so much that we decided to go back and visit the Bahamas. This time with the session from entitled Tourism Response to Stay Resilient Post-COVID-19, and presented by a good friend and colleague of ours, Professor Victor Saran Nair at the University of the Bahamas. And thank you, Vic, for your support of the show as well. And then to a session and a topic that is also dear to Andy and I, but also important to the tourism industry, golf tourism, as presented by Dr. Bruce Korn of Southern Cross University in Australia. For me, it's amazing how such a small white ball can distract you from the routines that consume our daily lives. And another interesting fact is that golf is actually one industry that has experienced considerable growth throughout this pandemic. Then I discovered Perry's afraid of heights and Andy's only comfortable staying in hotels. So maybe I'll be going to base camp alone with our presentation, Everest and Mountain Tourism, the Roof of the World, presented by Mr. Samir Tapa, as Perry mentioned, from the Silver Mountain Hotel School. And speaking of colour, I think one of the most colourful and dynamic presentations by one of our most colourful presenters, Professor Parikshit Manas of the University of Jammu, who gave us an update on tourism strategies in India. And this was also a time when I personally was coming to terms with a very good, serious look about domestic tourism and the role domestic tourism might play in post-COVID-19 recovery. This is followed by an educational look into virtual internships presented by JC Wong, who is Program and Content Director at Talent Basket. Dr. Gabby Walters, the Associate Professor in Tourism at University of Queensland, gave us a fantastic presentation titled Image and Reputation Management During Times of Crises, and shared with us the release of a recent book in the space. This is followed by an interesting and international perspective on food tourism by Dr. Frederick Bouchon, Gastronomic Destinations, Challenges and a Possible Future Tourism Trends. And Reimagining Tourism for 2021 and Beyond, presented by Dr. Sarah Gardner of Griffith University. And I think apart from a very, very informative presentation, I think 30 minutes has also provided a number of other angles that we can assist students and academics. So Dr. Gardner's presentation included a kind offer from Griffith University, offering 30-minute talks to students and faculty an opportunity to complete their micro-credential of the online course that's offered at Griffith, Tourism Ready for Recovery. Again, I hope that students have availed themselves of that opportunity, and that many other institutions have looked at that as part of their teachings. And Sarah may be able to join us later today. And then Mr. John Law, Director of Development, School Relations at HOSCO, presented his thoughts for students, basically helping you to prepare for recovery with upskilling, connections, jobs, and online learning. And this was followed by a remarkable presentation by a remarkable speaker, to be honest, Professor Mushtaq Al-Atabi, who's the Provost and CEO of Heriot-Watt University in Malaysia, who provided a 30-minute history of human jobs, giving employment a sense of meaning and identity. A very, very interesting session, and feel free to go back and look at that video. And finally, last week, Professor Sam Wang presented with Professor Perry Hobson an informative session on university and hospitality school rankings, an area that is not very well understood and actually becomes more and more complex the more you understand. But thank you very much, Sam, for your contributions, and Perry for giving us your insights into that space. And for the future, my final thoughts, if I can just wrap up by saying, the journey with 30 minutes talks has been fantastic. The opportunity to support colleagues around the world, contribute to students' knowledge, and to make new friends has been the most rewarding for me. As we look to the next stage, and hopefully the pandemic being brought under control through the recent commencement of the vaccination program across the world. And I think, interestingly, the photograph that you're seeing here, the first British person to be given the vaccine in the UK is a lady named Margaret Keenan. She's originally from Ireland, and she's been vaccinated by somebody out of the Philippines, a nurse out of the Philippines. Her name is May Parsons. And to make this even more global, the vaccine she's been given has been developed by 2 Turkish nationals living in Germany and working at the German biotech firm. So this picture truly represents a global response to a global pandemic. And as the vaccine rollout begins across the globe, and although this is our last regular weekly show, I'd like to share one last thought with you. As Perry said before, COVID has not only given our industry an opportunity to reset, but each and every one of us a unique opportunity to rethink the way in which we interact with each other. We all know the industry will rebound. It may not be all blue skies, or it may not even be the same as what we know it to be, but it will rebound. It is in our human nature that we want to travel, explore, and experience. So while the pandemic has been devastating to individuals, families, and industry throughout the world, and a timely reminder to all of us that it has infected more than 73 million people already. It has killed over 1.6 million people, sadly, but there are 51.8 million people as of today that have recovered and have gotten through the pandemic. The virus still continues to devastate so many people in so many places. So this is a reminder for us all to reflect more broadly about humanity and our fellow human beings. I sincerely hope that out of the pandemic, we will all take the opportunity to grow and become more empathetic towards each other, to work towards a society that better understands each other, cares more for each other, and spends more quality time sharing the space we call Earth. Let's ensure that out of the despairs of the pandemic comes something much bigger, a glimmer of light for a better world. one where we all learn to be more tolerant and understanding of each other. And don't forget that at the end of the day, we all rely on each other. We are, after all, only human. Finally, thanks, Andy, Perry, for allowing me to be part of the show and for sharing this journey with you. Thank you, everybody, and continue to be safe, everybody. Keep learning.
Alan, thank you very much for putting that together. That was a great way for us to review all of our guest speakers over the past 8 months. And I think that was very well put and very good pictures there too. It's good to see them all one more time put together. I thought that was great.
Yeah, I was actually amazed when I was looking through it, Andy and Perry, just as we said before, the breadth and the width of the topics that we've tackled over this time. So, you know, it was really good for myself to reflect.
And Perry, one last comment before I do my presentation.
Look, I think it was, looking back over the range of topics that we've covered has been, I think, phenomenal. And I'm very thankful for all the speakers that we've had who've agreed to join us, to give their time so willingly. Sometimes getting up at very early hours of the morning to join us as well, particularly for colleagues in Vegas and the Bahamas, etc. So not just their expertise, but their time. And I think that leaves a great legacy of videos for people to look at, and I think we'll, you know, at whatever time. And so whether it's been about destinations or whether it's about themes, I think we've got some really interesting information and great thoughts that have taken us along this journey.
It's time for my presentation. So I decided to do something a little different. As we promised at the beginning of the show, I'm going to give some advice for 2021. And I hope that everyone will take some of these words of wisdom and enjoy. So here's my words of advice for 2021. Hello, I'm Dr. Andy Nazarechuk. And as we draw to the end of the 2020 year, a challenging year for all of us, I wanted to share some advice for 2021. One of the things I want to tell you about is learn how to make decisions. Leaders make decisions. They take the responsibility for the success and failure of their organizations. The way to do this is to gather information, evaluate that information, and then after you have done that evaluation, make a decision. 97 or 8% of the time, you're going to be correct. And yes, you will make some mistakes, but learn from those mistakes. Start practicing with your friends when you're standing around, having to make a decision where to go to dinner. Help them make a decision and take responsibility for it. That's how you develop the decision-making skill for the future. The second piece of advice is manipulation. I want you to understand it. Every day you're getting bombarded by TV advertisements, internet ads, pop-up ads. All these things are trying to manipulate your ability to make a decision. Your iPhone has now become a part of your life. Yes, it is an important tool. But realize that you cannot spend all of your time on an iPhone. It will affect your relationships at some point. Use it as a tool. The way I look at it as iPhone is consider it a piece of candy. Yes, we all enjoy a piece of candy and we look forward to it, but you can't eat the whole box. Otherwise, it's just not going to be successful for you. So learn how to use your iPhone, the apps as a tool for efficiency, for productivity, for information, for data. Use it to help your future. Don't use it to play games all day long. You have to know how to take advantage of technology and how to use it to be successful. Tourism will return, and I think it's going to be a very good return after the pandemic is over. Once people start traveling again, they will want to go to beaches, they're going to want to go to destinations, they're going to go to cultural sites, historical sites, they're going to play sports activities because they haven't been able to do that for the past year. So it's very important for these people to want to get out and travel again. And because a lot of people have been able to save money, they're going to have the money to be able to travel once the pandemic is over. Now, that's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take 6 months, 8 months, maybe even a year before we get back to normal. But as you look for your future jobs, start looking in those areas that you think are going to come back the strongest, because that's where they're going to need good people to staff their organizations as they return to success. Now, your education, you have to own it. Right now, you're studying online. You may be going to a few classes. Hopefully, that'll be better in the next few months. But you have to own your education and take responsibility for it, because the harder you work, the more successful you will be. There's no easy way. Work hard now, gain your experience, study, develop your relationships, and that will help you be successful in the future. There is no easy way to be successful. So what we're recommending is that we want you to live, enjoy your family, enjoy your friends. We want you to work hard, but we also want you to create your opportunities for yourself. Don't wait for them to come to you. If you sit and wait, the phone may never ring. But if you go out and make friends and develop relationships professionally, join organizations, volunteer to help your community, those will open up doors to new opportunities. So we want you to do something great next year. Set your goal, decide what you're going to do. It can be educational, it can be a new job, it could be some new skill you're going to learn, it could be your health. All these things are important. So decide what your goal is going to be for 2021, and then we want you to go and do it. I'm Dr. Andy Nazarechuk, and I want to thank you for joining us for all of our programs this year. We did 36 different webinars. We had great attendance, great compliments from everyone, and we want you to be successful in the future. Thank you very much for joining us, and we wish you the very best.
Some fantastic thoughts there, Andy. Well done in sharing your thoughts for the future. Some very, very thought-provoking things there for students and colleagues to think about for the next year.
Yeah, and I'm learning how to do video. I learned so much how to edit videos and put it together. I'm really getting into it now. Maybe I'll have to start my own blog soon.
Blogs next, that's right. Well, you've done so much work, Andy, with behind the scenes and making sure that everyone knows about the shows when they're coming on. Again, I think it's taught us all a whole range of skills. I'd never bothered with virtual backgrounds before. Now I've got a whole library of the things. So yes, it's amazing the things that's very quickly when you change, how fast you can change and adapt to those circumstances.
And I think it's time for us to move on to thanking all of our academic partners and all of those other people that are out there waiting to say a few words. So let's move on. Let's thank our academic partners first for the last time this year. And I'll start with the first column on the left, which is the Macau Tourism and Hospitality Association. They have been very supportive from the very beginning. Our friends at Mahatma Gandhi University in India, we enjoyed doing that special event with them. CoRep, of course, all of our educators from CoRep, one of our friends, all of us have spoken at their conferences over the years. Silver Mountain School of Hotel Management, our friend Samir in Nepal, the University of the Bahamas, Vic, who's our friend down in the Bahamas. We appreciate his support. The International Center of Excellence, the ICE in Tourism and Hospitality Education, and of course, the University of Santo Tomas, who have been with us from its very beginning. Perry, why don't you start with Sunway University?
Yeah, well, obviously, all my colleagues at Sunway University, where I'm based here in Kuala Lumpur. So thanks to them not only for their support and but also to our friends in many other institutions, as Andy's pointed out, to NCUT over in Taiwan, to TIPFI, which is the Tourism Industry Board Association in the Philippines, and to HOSCO, the Hospitality Network.
Thank you to University of Nevada, Las Vegas, and the Harrow College of Hospitality, the PATA, Pacific Asia Travel Association, the Philippines chapter, Asia Pacific CRE, the Hospitality and Tourism Educators, and the University of Hawaii at Manoa. And I said before, thank you, Jerry, for joining us. The Schindler College of Business, School of Travel Industry Management.
LPU has actually been our biggest supporter from the very beginning. Before the show started, we asked for their help, and they graciously said yes to everything we asked for. So a special shout out and thank you to LPU. Yep. Perry, why don't you finish off the rest?
Really, thanks very much to our friends and colleagues there. To Joji Young School, and I see Joji going to be joining us today too. So again, thank you so much for your support. To our friends at Doi Thuan University, which is in Da Nang in Vietnam, who recently joined us. To Southfield International Institution, which is in Manila, and to Holy Cross College, which is also in the Philippines. So again, thank you to all of those for joining us as academic partners and support.
And Perry, even though this is our last program of the year, we have our newest academic partner from Griffith University in Queensland, Australia. So a welcome to them for joining us. Mm-hmm. And they'll, I know they will be part of our website as we put them onto our website as people use our videos for future educational purposes. At this point, it's time for us to welcome some of those people that are out there that are going to join us. Perry, you're going to introduce our first guest speaker?
Well, yes, we'll do it. And it's a perfect segue from Griffith University, who joined us a few weeks ago. Dr. Sarah Gardner. Hello there, Sarah. It's great to see you here today.
Hi, everyone.
I think it's a bit wet down in your part of the world, judging by the weather reports. You're looking quite dry, given the very severe weather that you guys had down there.
Yeah, it's been pretty rainy here. I'm on the Gold Coast in Queensland. We've also had quite high tides and lots of waves and sea swell. So we're in a bit of a situation where a lot of our beaches are disappearing under the water at the moment. So it's been an interesting time in terms of being stuck at home, not because of the COVID-19, but because of the weather events that are happening.
Which is interesting because you were talking you shared with us some of the challenges of destination recovery, and it just seems like it just moves from one thing to another. If it's not bushfires, it's COVID. If it's not that, it's now tremendous rains and storms. From my hometown in Byron Bay, I think the beach is now somewhere around New Zealand or something. It's been washed out to sea, so it's been pretty difficult. So, what else has been happening with you in Australia recently?
Yeah, I think overall Australia is obviously doing very well in terms of getting on top of the COVID-19 community transmissions. We opened up all of our state borders, and so people are now able to travel around Australia quite easily between the various states. We're also seeing, we obviously also have quite a lot of people overseas that are residents of Australia that are coming back and in hotel quarantine. So now we have quite a lot of people coming home for Christmas in hotel quarantine, and then hoping to be back in Australia for Christmas Day. Domestic tourism is obviously still a focus for Australian tourism at the moment, particularly keen for operators to have a really good summer. So we're moving into our summer holiday period. So really keen for for operators to see a lot of domestic visitors. So the focus has really been on trying to get Australians to take a holiday at home or holiday here this year. And so a lot of operators have really had to shift the way they do business to make sure they are offering product and experiences that are appealing to the domestic market. Price is always top of people's mind to motivate travel. And so there's been quite a lot of good price incentives out there in the market to get people out there and traveling. Most of our domestic tourism has been drive tourism. So although there are increasing flights between our major tourism destinations and our capital cities, but a lot of people are doing drive holidays to a lot of coastal destinations. But interesting, a place like Byron Bay, I was actually down there on my summer holiday last week, and we had beautiful weather, but I suppose we are moving into that, tropical cyclone season particularly the northern part of Australia. And so we have had quite a lot of wet weather in the past week. And so obviously the key is not just resilience in terms of COVID-19, but also the ongoing influences of extreme weather events and I suppose the impacts of climate change moving forward. So that's obviously top of mind for everyone, given the significant bushfire season we had last year, and then potentially cyclonic type conditions this year. So lots for.
Well, maybe this is very much the new normal. Is just being very ready for all those sorts of things that keep impacting us, and that, as you mentioned there, about the challenges of resilience for the industry. Sarah, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you again so much for taking the time to join us on 30-Minute Talks. It's been great, again, to get Griffith University to join us, an academic partner as well.
Yeah, thank you. And it's my great pleasure, everybody, to introduce to you, for those of you that don't know, Professor Ross Dowling, if Ross can join us. Ross probably doesn't need too great an introduction. I know he's a well-known person around Australia and a well-known academic in the world, but also chair of Destination Perth. He's an honorary professor of tourism at the School of Business and Law at ECU and chair of Cruise WA. And Ross, welcome along. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, welcome to you, Andy, and Perry, and to Alan and the whole team that's on today. All good.
Fantastic. It's been some time since you spoke with us about the cruise industry, and you know, back when we first spoke, it was very much doom and gloom with some glimmers of light. Have you got a bit of an update to give us?
Yeah, look, in terms of an update, really nothing's happened because the cruise industry is still shut down worldwide. In Australia, it won't It's just being moved for a start date from the 17th of December to now 17th of March. And I doubt that that date will be the actual date too. So it's going to be in lockdown for a while. But the reality is that during that time, the cruise industry has been working 24/7, trying to make it safer. So when they return, they won't have the situation that they had with COVID ships traveling the world when the pandemic first hit.
Yeah, thanks, Ross. And I saw there was a couple of false starts almost. There was a couple of ships that went out there and tried and unfortunately had a bit of a repeat incident and I think promptly returned home.
Yeah, that's correct. A few false starts there, but on the whole, it will be safer. And when it reopens, it will. There's so many protocols that have been put in place by the US government, the cruise industry itself, the cruise industry in Australia, Hong Kong, other parts of the world. So now they've got a whole suite of protocols on board. So, yep, it'll be a different world when we go back cruising again.
What about life for you personally? Has COVID changed your personal life?
Well, it has. At our university, things have changed dramatically across. I'm based in Perth, Western Australia. There's many universities here now that are no longer going to have face-to-face lectures. It'll all be online. I've just convened a global ecotourism conference here in Western Australia, which was unusual for me because I'm used, at my age, used to paper and lots of programs. This global conference was paperless. So I convened the whole conference from the front with just my little phone in my hand and trying to balance off speakers from all around the world. We had 65 people in front of us. We had, so face-to-face for 3 days. We had another 105 hubs around Australia. So different groups in different parts of Australia coming together to take part. And then we had another 220 around the world. So I was having technical advice from inside the room, from around as far other groups as far away as London. So I was trying to balance, all the information I'm getting. People are coming up next on the screen, or maybe they're not quite ready yet, or maybe the audio's not working, etc. So like Andy, Dr. Andy, I have to, this is a rapid education into this whole new world of teaching and also running conferences.
It's a learning experience once you go online. Don't you agree, boys?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think you've become very much a digital professor there, Ross, already.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Thank you. Look, just before we finish my section and we move on to the others, I just want to say from where I stand that what you three men have done is absolutely incredible for the industry. You've filled in a huge gap here. I mean, there's traditional online academic lecturing. There's also learning on the job experience. This sat halfway between with some of the world's greatest academic experts contributing, some of the world's greatest industry experts contributing, with you three doing this week after week, providing incredible knowledge, and not only for the university courses that our clientele here are all involved in, but also for the future. And a great little wrap up there today, Andy, with looking for the future. If I look back over my life, probably 9 out of the 10 jobs I've had, I created myself. And so that's what you were saying today. You don't sit around waiting for a job to pop up online and that you apply for. You have to get out there, network and create it. And that's what you three did. You got out there, filled a niche, and I just want to wish you all the very best for the festive season and for the future. And if I can be involved in this in the future, I'm happy to. So thanks, Alan, Andy, and Perry.
Thank you, Ross.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much, Ross.
The next person actually sitting there is a good friend of all of ours. That's Lee Singh from National Kaohsiung University in Taiwan, and she was one of our first guest speakers, and she talked about coffee and tourism. Lee Singh, how are you? Tell us how you're doing.
Hi, Ellen, Perry, and Andy. Very good to connect to you again. Very honored to be here today again. To be honest with you, it's great honor for me to be a guest speaker in 30-minute talks. That's fantastic experience for me.
And what was the favorite? What did you remember the most about your experience between us having us being on our show, and then you had us come and do your conference too?
Yeah, absolutely. That was my first time to speak in a webinar. So I want to thank thanks all of you like helping me to improve the content of my presentation. And also, I remember that you give me this very detailed instruction to help me to set up the audio and video. And that actually really paves the way that we, host a huge online conference symposium, the IPSTH 2020. I use the same instruction, that's very easy to follow guideline. And I also use that to host the NCUT Hospitality and Tourism Management webinar series. So every time I learned all this experience from 30 Minutes Talk, it's really benefits for the following webinars that NCUT hosts. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Lisa. We appreciate you joining us and supporting us. And of course, you have many of your students and some of my old master's students all joined us over the past year. So we appreciate their support and their participation.
No, I was just going to say this, and thanks. Thank you so much for being involved. And as I said, I learned a lot from doing the 3-minute judging as well. I must say, when Andy asked me earlier what was my favourite one of the year, I must say it was tough. It was hard work, I must say, to listen so intently to so many presentations very fast, and the students did a great job. So I must say that was a great thing we've been involved with this year. So thanks for that opportunity too.
Thank you, Lisa. And actually, the next person is just joined us off the cuff, and Jerry Agusa from University of Hawaii in Manoa. He's out there, so we're going to ask Jerry to join us and say hello. Jerry, how are you, buddy?
Aloha, everybody. Aloha.
Hey, Jerry.
Good to see you guys. First of all, I'd like to, I agree 100% with Dr. Ross Dowling. You guys really did fill a gap, and the Three Musketeers, you really did an outstanding job. You should please take a bow, because I was amazed how well it went, especially when you gave me all the hints to do a better job. Alan, especially with the lighting and as Dr. Chen mentioned, with the audio. So I really appreciated all that, and it made me better. Right now, my classes are all online, and we're in the middle of finals. So finals on Zoom, final exams on Zoom.
Really? Wow, that's exciting. So you feel more comfortable on your doing your videos now, Jerry?
Yes, sir. My semester went very well. It really did. Because of that, I had much more interaction with the students than some of my other colleagues that didn't have that. It was very important, like you mentioned, simple things like the lighting, making sure that you're at the right height, and making sure the PowerPoints are not go too quickly, things like that. And I received some very positive comments from the students. So, especially strategic management, the capstone course. As you mentioned, that our industry is now in a holding pattern right now. They're not really hiring anybody. Here in Hawaii, we're hurting. We're still hurting. More than half the hotels are not open. So there's not that job opportunity for the students. But for them to still have positive experience in the classroom was very gratifying, because their future opportunities to be managers. Like I mentioned, I don't know if you recall, March 1st, every one of my students that were in the class had jobs and had management jobs. By March 17th, they were all gone. And it's been consistent that way ever since. We're down, we're probably more than 70% per month down. We shut everything down for a while. Now we have been fortunate that they've been able to do the pre-COVID test and another COVID test when they come. So we're trugging along.
Yeah,
it's good to hear that you some things going better there, Jerry. And I must say, I really like your backdrop now as well. You've really have moved into the digital age, my friend.
Yes, this is my university, this is my school, Shiloh School of Business. Yes, look forward to seeing you folks next somewhere in the world and buying you guys a round of beers on me.
Thank you, Jerry. We'll be in Hawaii one day. We'll all go to Hawaii and join you over there.
Oh, that'll be great. That'll be great.
Excellent.
We look forward to that as well, Jerry. Thank you.
Perry, why don't you introduce our next speaker, who's sitting there patiently in the UK?
I'm flying right to the UK now. Fantastic. And I think it's Bert van Volbeek.
Bert.
Here's Bert. And a very good, very early morning for you, I think it is, Bert.
Yes, greetings from the UK, where I'm sitting in the playroom of my grandsons and adapt to not only Zoom, but also to a new way of being semi-retired. The good news is that I don't have to talk to universities about the necessity of doing risk and crisis management. And I think slowly but surely everybody starts understanding. The other good news is that Zoom is really one of those tools that we haven't used very well, but we are using very well from academic point of view. But I can also tell you that my two grandsons of 6 and 8 years old are Zooming on Boy Scouts, are Zooming on Taekwondo, and for them, Zoom is a new world, which will eventually help the education and people get used to this kind of way of educating very well. So they say every crisis is an opportunity. Let's talk about the opportunities. Number one opportunity, the environment. They are the big winner. And I hope we will all make sure that in the future we do a better job than we have ever done before. I have only been to an airport this year once, and that was when I escaped from Thailand and flew to the UK. And to be honest, I must say I enjoyed not flying. From a tourism point of view, many of you have said that already. It will be a new way of doing things. And I hope that this kind of education and the 36 sessions that you have will help everybody to realize that we have to do different things, that we have to be more innovative, and that we have to more sustainable. Last but not least, I think education point of view, we are all going to be better. We're going to reach more people. More people will be told, will be educated from around the world. And like we meet now with people sitting in Hawaii, people sitting in the UK, and we still be able to talk to it. So long story short, I hope we will all do a better job in the future. Risk and crisis management will be a better part and a more important part than ever before. And I hope that everybody will learn from this opportunity. The dangerous or the scary part is they say there's always going to be a next crisis. And I don't know what that next crisis is going to be. I think we saw it, or you in Australia saw it, it was the bushfires, and something happened after that. And let's see what happens after that. But for now, I think 2021 can't get much worse than 2020 was. And I hope that everybody will have a very Merry Christmas, lockdown or not lockdown, and a very Happy New Year.
Thanks so much, Bert, for those words. And thank you so much again for joining us. I know it's very early in the morning, and to displace your grandson out of the office, the new office space there. So I can see that, as you said, oh, Secret Santa. Oh, right. Okay.
Bert, it's good to see you, Bert. It looks like you're doing well, enjoying the UK. Thank you for joining us, and we appreciate always your words of wisdom. And he's the master of disaster, our old friend Bert. Thank you, buddy.
And on that note, everybody, it's again my great pleasure to introduce Dr. Lilibeth Aragon. Lilibeth, are you around and would you like to join us? For those of you that don't know Lilibeth, and I know you probably don't need too much introduction, she's the Dean of the College of International Tourism and Hospitality Management at Lyceum of the Philippines University. Hi, Lilibeth, how are you?
Hi, Alan. I'm doing great. Thank you.
Fantastic. Good to see you.
Thank you. Thank you. Allow me first to congratulate and sincerely thank you, Drs. Andy, Perry, and Alan, for giving us 36 meaningful Wednesdays of fun learning and discussions. This program contributed so much to the continuous development of our students and faculty, especially during the time of pandemic when everyone else were confined at home. You were able to reinforce how learning can still be made possible virtually in shorter duration, 30 minutes at that. And So what do I love most about the 30-minute talks? First, the concept of the shorter, the better. It sparked a new instructional dimension for educators that indeed learning is flexible and it can be chunked. Number two, experts and speakers from around the world. Thank you very much for that. Another one is the opportunity for networking and collaborations. I particularly love also the 90 seconds. The contents are creative, practical, and fun. And of course, the 30-minute website. It's a wealth of treasure. And what will I miss? Number one would be free travels. This program was able to take us to India, to Hawaii, to Bahamas, Las Vegas, Macau, even on top of the world, Mount Everest. Can you believe that? And of course, I'm going to miss also the exciting and relevant topics week after week. My FB postings, the pre and post events. I'm going to miss the 2 p.m. Wednesday. It's actually on alarm. And of course, I'm going to miss your smiling faces, Alan, Perry, and Dr. Andy. And from all of us here in LP in the Philippines, of course, we pray for better days so that we can welcome you back to the country.
Lily Beth,
Thank
you've been
you.
you're our biggest supporter at LPU. Is a great school with wonderful students, and they've participated and they've been here, and we love them and we love you, and we always will support you whatever we can do. Perry?
Absolutely. I've got my Filipino backdrop on. You know, I was only in the Philippines earlier this year before everything sort of turned to custard, as they say in the UK. So thanks again so much for your support, Libeth. We've been to Lyceum and I'm looking forward to returning as soon as those things permit. And thank you for those words. It's been great having you and so many of your students involved and colleagues. So again, thank you, particularly thank you so much for your support.
9 days before Christmas, and so advance Merry Christmas to the three of you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Lilybeth. And I just wanted to add to that, again, thank you for your support. And what's the, give me a measure of the temperature in the institution, knowing that the first vaccine was administered by a Filipino nurse.
Definitely, we're very proud of that. It shows the concern of the Filipino medical practitioners, not just for our own country, but of course for the different people around the world. And hopefully we can get the vaccine too here in the Philippines.
And a quick reminder to all of our people that are participating today that LPU hosts one of the largest cohorts of hospitality tourism students in the world. So I do use that as a bit of a canary in the cage. Thank you for your ongoing support and for your students' continued participation.
You're most welcome. We're happy to serve. And from all of us here in LPU, we're going to miss you, but we know that you'll just be around, right?
Of course. Thank you, Lilybeth. Thank you very much. And of course, it comes down to now we have one last person that's going to join us. And you know, when we first started this program, even the concept, the first person that we called was Tina Aquino, because of her long reputation and experience at LPU, her connections around Manila, and now she's the chairperson of the Tourism Industry Board Foundation, Inc. And she is the one person that without her support, we wouldn't be here today. So Tina, we want to thank you for all your help in helping us, motivating us, supporting us. And you are actually the first and only guest host that ran our whole program. And you got the highest, some of the highest scores ever. So if you want to, maybe you should be doing the show yourself next year. Tina, welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Andy. It was a pleasure actually to be part of the 30-minute. For the first time, a female host actually came in to the male-laden show. But indeed, the 30-minute talks was a regular speed date that I look forward to every week, full of exciting information in tidbit sizes, triggering a follow-up read or a discussion with like-minded people. I've cited some of your tidbits in other webinars I would attend. Though the regular speed dates would be on demand in the future, I thank you for all the efforts you put in this webinar. I have been privy to the way that you set up a webinar. A 30-minute webinar would entail what? A 30-minute pre-production meeting, loads of WhatsApp or email exchanges. I just couldn't see how you could put everything with all your schedules, etc. You know, and you were across different time zones, and it was just good. I guess that would be the silver lining actually for a 30-minute. I thank you for all the efforts, especially that the webinar, as we navigated the uncertainties of the early COVID period to where we are now, touching the lives of many people across the globe. Thank you for the effort, time, and commitment you shared during this record-breaking series of the 30-minute. Congratulations to all of you. Feelings at this point are very ambivalent because I'm just glad it's Christmas with a flurry of activities that we have for the season, but definitely the emptiness will come when we're back to normal mode. But I really, the fun is there, the the great memories of what you've done. This is not going to go unnoticed as people go back and reflect to the 30. You know, that's a big question that I was asked you. Why 30 minutes? Why not 20 minutes? Why not 3 minutes, etc.? And you always could evade answering that. And I said, oh, maybe that's a good chunk because 30 minutes really is a good enough. If you're interested or not, then you stay on. But I've stayed on, and I think a lot of people have stayed on with the 30 minutes. So congratulations to you, Dr. Perry and Dr. Allen. Thank you.
Tina, thank you for those kind words.
Yeah.
Perry, what do you got this? What do you have to add?
Well, in the earlier show, thank you so much, Tina, because I know you were always worried about me wearing my hats in the earlier shows. I was trying to wear a number of different hats. And as you know, I have quite a collection of different hats, by the way, for different parts of the world I've been to. And, you know, for me, being able to show my hats of various reflections of my different personalities and the different places I've been to and I can travel to over the world. So it doesn't matter where I go, Tina, I always want you to know I've got a hat, and every time I'm going to wear it, I'm going to think of you, because I think that's the way to go forward. And remember, it's sun smart. Make sure, because you don't want to get cancer. And when you haven't got much hair, that's one of the things. So, of course, what I save on hairdressing, which, of course, not having a lot of hair, I don't see a lot, but it does mean I can spend my money on hats otherwise. So it doesn't matter where I go, and I have even flat pack hats as well. I can take them wherever I go, and they work. So, Tina, that's my hat collection.
Okay, great.
I'm happy you took the Costa Cruise Lines one off, Perry.
That was from last year, see? So that was our last cruise. So we'll be back on those boats as soon as Ross gives me the okay to go.
Why don't we ask all of our participants to join us on the screen at one time, and then we can get
whoever's left,
screenshot as
everybody,
part of our...
whoever's still there, please join us.
And thank you to everyone once again for being part of 30-minute talks over the, you know, whatever it's been, 36 weeks. I said 9 months before, and then I realized that 9 months had another number of connotations.
No, it has been great. So thanks very much, everybody, for joining us over that time. It's been great to have had so much support from so many different people from around the world, because without that, that really wouldn't have made the show what it has been. So again, thank you, everybody, very much.
Well, we appreciate everybody sticking with us for 36 weeks, 36 shows, thousands of attendees, thousands of questions, certificates to everyone. It's been a wonderful ride, and we enjoyed taking that ride with all of you, and your support and your help and your participation really has made it an opportunity for all of us and all those students out there to learn from each and every one of you. And we look forward to doing something in the future again, and hope that we'll see you soon, one way or the other. Zoom is always there, and we're happy to do it. Thank you very much. Alan?
Yeah, thanks, Andy. And I think on that note, I can only but agree with you. Thank you again to everybody. And again, thank you to the students that are still with us today. Thank you for joining us on an ongoing basis for as many weeks as you've had. We hope that you've all taken something from the show. And, you know, as we said, although this is the last weekly regular show, we will be around. I think Tina, it was the phrase Tina used. We will be around.
That's right, we will be. And I'll leave you with my replacement for 30 minutes, which I introduced a few weeks ago, as I've become a truly digital professor.
Excellent. Perry's getting very good with his graphics and skills. He's learned a lot this past year. So again, as we look forward to the future, we wish you all the best of luck. Happy holidays. Be safe. Look forward to the pandemic and the vaccine getting out there as quickly as possible so that we can all get back to what we do best, and that is teaching students how to take care of customers and tourists and guests in hotels around the world. 30 Minutes has done its part to share that knowledge with everyone, and we hope that our efforts this past year has helped made our industry just a little bit better.
Thank you, everybody.
Absolutely.
Aloha. Merry
Aloha.
Christmas.
Thanks, Tina. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us.
Bye. God bless everyone.
Okay, and again, as always, our last e-certificate for the year. make sure you do the post. The post survey has a couple additional questions about the webinars this time. And so if you learn 3 wonderful things, and I'm sure you learned from so many different people today, complete that survey. We'll send you a certificate, and that will be our last certificate for this year. And again, on behalf of myself, I want to thank everyone for joining us. And 30-minute talks has been a wonderful experience. It's been an educational experience, and it's been fun. And I really want to thank my partners, Alan and Perry, for joining me and working together so hard, because it's not an easy process. And they were there every week without fail. And so thank you for that support, and thank you for being my friend. Appreciate that.
Yep, we as support the work out, Andy, that all you and everybody else has put into the show. It's been a great ride, as I said. It's been wonderful as 3 friends and colleagues to be able to put this on and to be able to done that and to receive that positive feedback from so many people and students. So it's been a great ride for the last 36 weeks.
And Andy, it was your brainchild right at the start. So thank you very much for inviting Perry and I to be part of the show. And I'm very happy that it's worked out as it has. It's been a positive experience, not only I think for us, but also for everybody that's participated. And let's approach 2021 with a fresh mind.
And so for the very last time for the 2020 year, I'm going to say thank you for joining us for 30-minute talks.